In Spanish, there are some changes that happen to avoid us having two vowel sounds together. A bit like in English, when we've got a apple, we want to avoid a apple. We want to avoid this and this kind of being next to each other, so we say an apple. And in Spanish, there are some changes that happen for exactly the same reason. And this is mainly with the words y, meaning and the word o, meaning or. If I'm saying, for example, Juan and Isabella, normally I'd say Juan y Isabella, but see what's happening here, Isabella, it's a bit like apple. I don't want to have those two sounds together because it kind of loses the distinction between the words. So just like an apple, what we're going to do is Juan e Isabella, Juan e Isabella. So what I'm doing is I'm changing E to E. I would do this anytime the next sound is an E sound, which doesn't necessarily mean it starts with an I. It could start with a H, because remember, the H in Spanish is silent. For example, if something's interesting and historic, es interesante e histórico. E histórico, because that E sound in histórico is the same as the E sound in E. This happens a lot with the phrase e incluso. So I'm changing this again to e incluso, and even. With o, what we do instead of o is we change it to u. So if I'm ever saying or something else, or another thing, or another person, u otra persona. Yo u otra persona, me or someone else. Now something similar which affects the articles we use with different nouns. The word for the, el or la, los or las, is when the noun starts with what we call a tonic A, which means it doesn't just start with an A, because there are loads of words that start with A, which are not a problem for this, but it's where it starts with an A, and that is the strong syllable. Agua, for example, it's not agua, it's agua. So the strong syllable is here, the la sílaba tónica, the tonic syllable, is una A tónica, it's a tonic A, it's a strong A. Águila, this one even has an accent, águila, meaning eagle. Alma, meaning soul. So even though these words are actually feminine, this is really widely misunderstood. These are feminine nouns. I would have to say el agua, el águila, el alma, and there are loads of other ones. El aula, the classroom, for example. What often happens is people think, because they learn el agua or el águila, they think it has el, it must be masculine, because there are lots of words that end in a which are masculine. For example, el problema. But these are a different kind of category. They're actually feminine nouns that use the masculine article simply because we're avoiding la agua, the same as a apple, or otro, the examples we just looked at. Now it's super important to understand this, because if I want to say the water is cold, I'd have to say el agua está fría, not frío, because though I'm using el, the noun itself is feminine. And if I'm talking about the waters in plural, las aguas. However, if I'm using un or una, because I want to avoid una agua, I would also say un agua, un águila, an eagle.